Hi, I'm in North Mayo and I'm coming to see a man that I met many years ago making a radio programme, but I've also just discovered that he's about to leave this part of the country. And when I met him years ago, he really was one of the most interesting people I'd ever met.
I rarely touch it these days, you know. It's been my pride and joy since I moved to Ireland, and it's been my constant companion until I got married. I'll see how it's doing this week.
He's a composer and a lover of Greenland. His name is Adrian Vernon Fish. Little piece by Herbert Howells, small to the point. The music, not Herbert Howells. Yeah, this is where I've lived and worked really for the last 10 years or so. That's kept me alive, having that. That's like a second wife to me. This one stays in tune. I hope she's not listening. You're in big trouble.
This is my workstation. My son designed it for me. This is where I struggle with notes that won't come and won't organise themselves in my mind. One thing I miss when I've been in Greenland is good Irish tea.
So you're going to go back to the UK?
Yeah, sadly.
Why is that?
Well, my wife's mother is, well, she's 98 going on 26. Physically very disabled now, sadly, but still does the Telegraph crossword.
Okay.
You know, so Margaret went over about 9.5 months ago to act as carer full time. She's given up her teaching, and of course, with me on now on the disability this last 3-4 years, I'm only earning my little disability allowance, and I can't stay here on my own and pay the mortgage, so I'm being repossessed. Oh. Unfortunately, I have to be out by the end of October. So
I thought you owned this house.
I did until 2005, when the place was hit by lightning, and it caused so much damage I mortgaged half the value of the property to put it right. Unfortunately, then of course the crash, and I ended up with a mortgage worth more than the house, because of course I'm packing to move. There's 3,000 CDs all got to be boxed up, and they're heavy, my goodness, you know.
Where are you going to put them?
They're all going to have to go into storage for the next however long it takes. Strauss wanting to be part of the action.
Is that the name of the dog? Strauss?
Yeah.
Were you here when the lightning struck?
No, I was actually in hospital in Plymouth having a hernia repaired, which was just as well. I had friends just a few kilometres away coming to look after the place, and the friends rang up one day. We've been to water your plants. They don't need watering. The house is sitting in a foot of water. I love the big skies, and you talk to children in a school in London, let's say, and you ask them where's the sky, and they point upwards. But you ask a child in Greenland or here where the sky is, and they point almost straight out. And there's 90 degrees there, and there's another 90. You know, we've got 180 degrees of sky here.
So when I come out here and I'm looking at this landscape and I'm going, how can you live out here where it's bleak, you can't see anything?
Bleakness is relative, though. You can sit in a basement flat somewhere in Dublin. You may not know the person living in the flat above you. You may hear them, but you don't know who they are. I've lived in a basement flat in South London when I was at college, and I didn't have a clue who the family were upstairs. And there's a little bit of sky you could see between the tenements. But sky is mental freedom. You know, it gives you a chance to breathe properly. And a quotation which I often use is, total freedom can only be achieved in total isolation. It's Dietrich Bonhoeffer, great philosopher. But I think he's right. And I'm not saying this is isolated, because I know everyone within a 10-mile radius, which you don't do in a city. So I don't think this is bleak at all. Yes, there's no trees, or very few trees. So if that's a definition of bleak, yes, we're bleak. You can live on your own in a place like this and not be lonely. I love the aloneness. I hate loneliness. That's the difference, I think.
What is the difference between the two?
Lonely is when there's a desperate need for some closeness, either with human contact or with spiritually, whatever it may be. That's loneliness. I could never be lonely here. There is always plenty going on, the wildlife out there. And the changing skies every 2 or 3 minutes is changing.
Can I ask you about your pendant? Can you tell me about the pendant?
That little polar bear is carved from a narwhal tusk. That's the narwhal, the single-toothed whale. Mind your head and mind your foot. This, in a sense, is the Greenland Museum, from my point of view. All the little carvings that I've brought back over the years. Carved not by professional artists necessarily, but by maybe a hunter holed up in his little snow house during a storm and whittling away with a rusty knife. And they've carved all sorts of things over the years traditionally. If I bring out this one, this mix of, I don't know, Donald Trump and somebody else, these were characters that were believed to live up on the ice cap, where no human in their right minds would ever dare to go. And they could cause mischief. And if you're, for example, your neighbour was having a better hunt than you had this year and got plenty of fish and seal meat hanging up for the winter, he'd be happy this time of the year now, September. He'd be just gazing into the distance and just enjoying the fact that he got a larder full for the winter. But if you as the neighbour had a bad hunt, you'd kind of be jealous, so maybe you'll quietly whittle away and carve yourself a tupilak and put it near his home, or in a watercourse nearby, or in his anorak hood or somewhere like that. And the belief it was, and still is maybe in the remoter villages, that the good luck will pass to you and he will then have bad luck for the winter. There's a narwhal, there's the narwhal with its tooth. There's a seal on what looks like the polar bear's shoulder.
And where did your interest in Greenland come from?
Lifelong fascination with polar regions from being a child. And I got myself a pen friend, just happened to be in Greenland. In his letters, I learned that no one had ever been to give classical concerts there. So I thought, right, there's my chance, go and give some organ recitals. So in 1991 I did, and I've been back on 11 occasions. Absorbed a lot of the culture, written the first book now of my Greenland memoirs is now out. It's been so much a part of my life. It's my second home. It's another spiritual home after this place.
Have you noticed the impact of global warming on Greenland?
Yeah, absolutely. I was there in February of 1994, and it was a perfectly normal February. Temperatures in Ayrshire were around -25 to -30. The sea was frozen as far as the eye could see. This was perfectly normal. And since about 1999-2000, there's been less and less duration of good solid ice. And by 2005, there was no permanent ice for the entire winter in Ayrshire. And that went on for several years. And it's only, I think, 2014 they had a traditional winter, as they called it. And like all these things, the trend may be warming, but you get the odd bit, and they love it. You know, oh, we can finally get the dogs out to run. Because they've been slaughtering dogs left, right and centre, because they're no use to anyone if they can't pull a sledge anywhere. Ayrshire is on an island, and if the sea's not frozen, they can't get their dogs out. Dogs have to be fed. If you've got 10, 12 dogs, they've all got to be fed.
Okay.
And they've got to pull the sledge so you can get out to feed them, to find the seals to feed them. Again, it's a chance to breathe. One thing I have learned, you know, in 15 years here, is the weather eye. You know, I had no idea about the weather, even in living in Cornwall. But here, it's Slieve Moor, just the other side of those bushes. If you see cloud crossing Slieve Moor and heading in this direction, I know I've got between 10 and 12 minutes, depending on the strength of the wind. And I like being a part of nature like that. I shall miss this. I really will miss this. England's M4 corridor is not quite